Hello, and welcome to episode 60 of Design Curious Podcast. Today on the podcast, I have interior designer Laura Thornton and also host of podcasts named The Business of Beautiful Spaces on the show and sharing her expertise. We have a great conversation for you, and you can find all the links about her and all the things that we mention, including the welcome guide that she is going to include in the show notes. And you will also find there links to the downloads I have for you, the 3 things I wish I had known before I started my career in interior design, as well as the roadmap to interior design. So it kind of gives you a guide on how to get into the career. And you can also take the quiz to see what kind of interior design you should be doing, whether it's residential, commercial, or maybe something else. Let me tell you a little bit more about Laura. Laura Thornton is founder and creative director of Thornton Design. Since founding the company in 1999, Laura has been committed to creating a new kind of interior design experience for her clients. Drawing from her expansive experience in creative, captivating interiors and managing a thriving design business, she's now opening the floodgates to knowledge for fellow interior designers via her insightful podcast called The Business of Beautiful Spaces. Driven by Laura's fervent passion to educate and inspire, this podcast is more than just a sharing platform. It's a catalyst for growth and success in the design industry. Hoping to embolden her fellow designers, aiding them in their quest of increased confidence and accelerated success, the podcast therefore serves as a treasure trove of insights curated to help burgeoning designers thrive in their respective businesses. It's about making the journey of design less daunting and more rewarding. And I think it is a great complement to this podcast and just a continuation of learning. So definitely I'm going to have you check out Business of Beautiful Spaces. And now let's hear from Laura. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hi, Laura. Welcome to Design Curious Podcast today. It's great to have you.
Hi, Rebecca. Thanks very much for having me. Congratulations on your 1-year anniversary of your podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a big deal. And I know that yours is probably coming up soon. So congratulations to you in advance.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us a little more about yourself. How did you get into the career of interior design?
Well, we could be here just for an hour on that. But the long and short of it is my father was a custom home builder, luxury home builder. And so I grew up in that industry. I went to university to become a lawyer and quickly figured out that was not the path for me and had to go home and tell my parents, sorry to disappoint you, but I'm going to go into the same industry that you're in. And so that was a very organic, easy fit. And so when I got to that part of the schooling, I knew I was in the right area. I knew I was doing the right thing because it had been part of my upbringing my whole life.
Sure. So, yeah. That's quite an advantage, actually, to be able to see firsthand. I don't know if you went to any job sites with your dad or anything like that, but just to see the construction happening is really great foundation to have.
Well, every home we ever lived in was a construction zone. Okay. And as soon as it was done, he had bought another one and he kept flipping. So in addition to doing it for other people, he was doing it for us. So we were constantly, literally living in a construction zone. Mm-hmm. My sister and I always say, I still love the smell of sawdust and fresh paint. Like it is the best smell. It smells like home. So yes, I don't know if I should say unfortunately, because it got me here, but it is something that definitely has always been part of my life.
Yeah. Well, you can definitely advise your clients on what it's going to be like living through construction of all different shapes and sizes, I'm sure. So you can assure them, like, I've been through this 20 times. So,
exactly.
I know what it's like for you. That's great.
It's a little different with the construction than just design, but you're right. Mm-hmm. Like it definitely is something where you don't forget living on plywood floors. You don't forget that the inconvenience of one bath. Like, you don't forget. So I can still always, like you said, tell your clients, give them a really good indicator that I am getting what you're going through, my sympathies. But it's worth it in the end.
Yeah. So after completing your degree, did you go into business for yourself right away, or did you work for another designer?
I did not. I went to the commercial side of things, and I was there for almost 7 years. And then about 5 years in, started doing some of the residential end on my own, meaning we were doing corporate offices. And then somehow one of the executives would ask me if I would come to their home to do paint consultations, this, that, or if they were potentially relocating to work in that location, would I come work with their family? And so it was kind of organic that way. And I was doing it on weekends. And then as that built and as my family started to grow, I knew that that would have been a better avenue for myself and my husband and a young child at the time. So that is how I got into the residential side of it. Now I do own a design firm now on my own, and it is commercial and residential. But at the time I was heavy residential.
So do you prefer commercial over residential?
I think that depends on the time of year.
Okay.
I don't mean that to be flippant, but sometimes if we've been really heavy in the thick of, designing solely for residential and it's a lot more details, and as we all know, there's a lot of hours that can get lost. Commercial is a very different animal. It's not anyone's personal money. It's quick, it's simple. And sometimes when that's so quick and simple and done and wrapped up, 0 revisions, no extra time, you think, wow, I could really do a few of these and then just not have to do. But the beauty of the residential is the connection, and that you're creating someone's dream home, and that all of these selections you're making are making their lives better. There is definitely there's something that goes along with that is completely lost in a commercial application, where you don't get that thrill of finding the right floor plan for them, or that right element, or they, I have clients who still to this day will send me pictures on a Christmas morning or their holiday dinner, and they're all around their table and they're saying, we all fit around the table, and there's nothing like that. So you won't get that from commercial, unfortunately, but they both have their pros. So I still lean towards the residential. As much as we sometimes can have that headache, but I absolutely still love the thrill of creating someone's dream home or space.
Yeah. Okay. So what prompted you to start your podcast, Business of Beautiful Spaces?
I was getting a lot of, I don't want to say younger because I don't necessarily know that, but they definitely were less seasoned designers asking for advice and asking if I would have a coffee or a Zoom chat with them. And I applaud that, because I would have loved to have that chat or that coffee, but there's only so much coffee I can drink in a day, and there's only so many hours in a day. So I was being asked constantly and realized there's a lot of hungry souls looking for information about how to run a successful design business. And I wanted to help, because I would love if this existed 25 years ago when I started. Literally taught myself everything that I needed to do, or I thought I needed to do each stage along the way. And if I can help another designer get there faster so that they can have more time with their friends, family, loved ones, children, even just have their own more time to themselves, I would love to be able to pass on information that helped me.
What are some of the challenges that you might share with someone that you've overcome in your career that you might be sharing with them?
Well, I think the biggest thing was, I have 3. I always call them pillars. I mean, the first person will always say, I know people don't always agree, but I think you need to have a contract right from the go. Like literally from day one, you should have a contract and buy a lawyer. I'm not a huge fan personally of buying somebody else's contract. I think it should be very indicative of the type of design that you are providing and the services that you are providing, so that it protects you properly. So that's always my first go-to. And then the second one is, you really need a solid process. And what does that look like? And stick to it each and every time, because I would try this way on one client, and then let's try it another way the next. So there was absolutely zero continuity from client to client. So, and we're heavily referral. And so I cringe now. And sometimes when people come back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is embarrassing from what it was before to what it is now, and how streamlined it is and how straightforward, and everyone knows what to expect. But every time I was trying a different avenue to try and be more efficient, or try and providing the best service for my client, but it was very inconsistent. So I really think a process is key. After you have a contract, I think your process, and then it's knowing your worth and charging appropriately to run a profitable business.
Mm-hmm.
That is why we are doing this.
Yeah.
So those are the three keys for me. And if you get those figured out, you'll be doing just fine in no time.
That's great. You're in the Toronto area, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So is your clientele mostly in Canada, or you do in the United States at all? Do you like have clients that reach farther?
We do, because we have such a heavy amount of clients that have homes in other parts of the States, specifically Florida. They have a lot of snowbirds, as they're called here, going to Florida for their winter getaway, so they don't have to put up with all our snow. But we definitely we do condos, we've done homes. We will be shipping furniture from here to there, especially when they're purchasing in Canadian dollars versus the American dollar. It's not constant. It might not be every year, but we are and have done projects in the past. There is another whole area to Ontario where we are, which is the Muskokas and cottage country, which is hugely popular. So a lot of our clients will also have a second lake home in that area as well. So we are doing multiple homes for the same family, but not always in the States.
Okay. Are there challenges around working internationally like that then that you've had to learn?
There can be. I don't think it's as difficult as maybe if I was dealing with an island or Europe, something like that. I think because we are pretty, crossed over, like there's a lot of the companies that we can get here from the States. So if you had to buy it there, you can. The only limitation for me is if I can't run their construction site. That's the first one. I can do the design and execute procurement on furniture and finishings, but I would not be able to actually run the construction side of it. And in addition to that, if there is an issue on site, or if there is something that now they can't get, I can't be the one to run out to the store to go. So you sometimes see somebody else interpreting their design and making a substitute. It has happened, and possibly not to my liking, but you can only do what you can do unless somebody's willing to pay for you to jump on a plane to get there. So that would be the only thing that really is a hindrance. But ever since, even just pre-COVID, but COVID specifically has really made it that we don't start any project unless everything is sitting on site. So that we don't have these issues, because lead times are so long that it's negated that.
Yeah, that's good. That's a really good policy. So how do you find contractors then in these other areas? Do you find them, or will you let your client find them?
Typically, it would be the client that finds it. Yeah, because they're not all in the same area. And so a lot of the time, the condos, because they are typically communities that are gated and it's run by a condo board, they will have preferred vendors that they like to work with and allow into these areas and or condos. And so usually they have a list that you can now interview along with your client and narrow down who you think the best fit is for you and your project, and then have 2 or 3 people quote that job. Typically they all know each other. They're all fighting for the same business. So it doesn't tend to be too far off, apples to apples. So it comes down to that connection if the client is finding that they're liking the individual on a personal level.
That's great. So going back to when your podcast and like the conversations that you have with designers, I know that you say that you offer a welcome guide to anyone who might be interested, like a template that designers can use. Tell us a little bit more about what that entails.
I know you can appreciate this, knowing analytics of your podcast and what hits with and what resonates with your listeners. And ours consistently has been our episode on welcome guides. We did a little bit of a series almost with all the different items that we have forward-facing client paperwork in our office. And the welcome guide is really your potential client's introduction to you. I always call it the foyer. It's like the foyer to your home. It's the first impression, and it's potentially your last impression. So you might as well make it a good one. And so this welcome guide has been consistently our number 1 episode. So, as a thank you, and I think it would be helpful. Sometimes people have a lot on their plate and they don't have the hours to start even putting together. Like, I know we are creatives and we wear a lot of hats as a business owner, but not all of us have time to become the marketing director as well. So this will help kickstart having a welcome guide, just to see what can be included, what you should maybe, or you don't want to, you don't have to, but it gives you a guide to what we do at our business. And then you just plug and play. So you can add your own photos, you can add your own information. If you want to change the verbiage, you can, but if you want something just to be able to start forwarding out to any inquiry that comes into your business, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, your website, or a phone call, you can easily say, well, let us forward you our welcome guide. And it will literally break down every step that you need to do next with the client. So you're not guessing. They're not wondering what to do. It spells it right out for them, and it spells out what they can expect if they decide to work with you. And I will lay money on the fact that 9 out of 10 designers don't have anything like that. So it will set you apart from competition potentially.
Yeah. That's
a very professional way to introduce your business.
For sure. And is it applicable for both commercial and residential clients?
It very easily could be. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
The process is the same. Yeah. My process is the same. So it's kind of spelled out in there for others, but it would be the same. It would be relative.
Okay. And do you send it out to both your commercial clients and
Sure do. Yeah. The only thing I tweak is my back page, if it's commercial, will have all the other commercial jobs logos that we've worked on, which some of them thankfully are very recognizable. So that credibility is really helpful. So there's just that one page that I take out if I am sending it to somebody who is looking for a residential project. They don't need to know that this is part of the business.
Well, that's very generous. We'll include the link for that in the show notes. But yeah, you're right. Having that welcome guide is really just a great introduction for the client to your business and making sure that they want to continue to work with you. And it does kind of prove to them that you have a process and that it's not just you're flying by the seat of your pants, like you're a seasoned designer and you have experience and all that stuff. That's great.
Yeah. Gives a little bit of an introduction about who you are in your business. If you have a team, you can add, headshots, faces, all of those things if you want. So then they actually know who they're dealing with as well. That you can include your pricing if you choose. Sometimes I think pricing can scare people if they don't understand your process. So you can pick and choose if you think that that's important for people to know. But really, you just want an introduction to who you are with your tone of voice. What you can do. If you have different offerings, you can include that as well. But overall, it's just a really nice way to introduce your business. That's great. If you have photos of your work, then I've left spots for them to go in. Sometimes a lot of my clients, they are not social media driven. They're also business owners. Like they might jump over there for a minute, but they're not taking the time where this actually allows them to see your work right here as they're flipping it. I'm going to also assume they're not going to print it. I'm going to assume it's on their computer or their phone, but it's right there in the background, kind of, just as a backer with the verbiage on top. And then they're actually seeing your portfolio along with your words. So you're getting a double whammy there as a high impact first impression.
Very smart. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Other kind of topics do you cover in your podcast?
We have covered, well, like I mentioned, the client facing. So everything from our presentations. And, I like to go a step deeper. I don't want to just, for me, I don't like to just cover, have your floor plan next to you. I go a little bit deeper. I know you guys all know that. So I go deeper with what's worked for me and what I find that resonates with the clients. And so we have our second highest episode is about the presentation and all the extras and the things that don't forget in your quote as well. Like when you're quoting a job, how easy it is to be in the weeds and the presentation's tomorrow and you got to print it fast. And then you're in the middle of the presentation and realize you forgot to include the cleaning of the job site, or you forgot to include like something small but costly. So we also have checklists, and we did a whole episode on all the checklists that we have and how we use them, how we incorporate organizational tools into our businesses and how we use them, how we've incorporated ChatGPT into our everyday lives at the business. I have a team here, so it becomes a little bit more important to be streamlined and in order. But I recognize that some don't. And I think that even then you need to be more organized because there isn't someone taking that off your plate. So how you can use apps and tools within your business to help keep yourself on track, or are there ways to automate parts of your business? So it doesn't mean that you have to keep being the person to send out certain things. We've done everything from covering High Point, your first visit, how to make that a little bit easier. We've had a lot of our preferred vendors come on and it helped others explain how to be quoting projects properly or what to look for if you're going to be trying to do any custom work. So it's quite a gamut right now. And so we're trying to make sure that everything that we do that if someone is going to grace us with their time, which is precious, and spend 30 minutes with me and listening to me chat, that they are going to walk away with an actionable item that they can use and do right away. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I know there's something else you probably would rather be doing or listening to or calling a friend instead. So I always like for anyone who has given us time to have something actionable right there that day and be able to incorporate it quite quickly into their business, hopefully for the better.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great to have that quick advice that you want to implement right away. You get motivated, and then after you're done listening, you just can implement it right away. That's great. You mentioned you have a team. How large is your team?
So we are a team of 4, myself, and we have a really great group of girls here. We also have a couple people that work from home, like our accountant and things that don't need to be in studio. But yeah, so we're a well-oiled machine of designers, which is nice. But like I said, it took a long time to get there. So I'm not trying to toot my own horn. It was a long trip to get here. And I know, as soon as you add another person into the mix, that whole chain changes. So it's ever evolving. But yeah.
Great. And you have a studio space then in Toronto?
I'm just north of Toronto in a small village called Kleinburg, which is a historical village. So we're just outside of the city.
Oh, great. So how did you get so savvy with your processes and procedures in your business? Like, did you have a coach that helped guide you, or is it just trial and error over the years?
A little bit of both. It was trial and error for a long time, a lot of books. I would read anything and everything I could get my hands on for next steps, but there's not a lot that exists for designers. It's as I don't mean to say that it's lonely in that way, but there's just you just feel like you can't find the info you're looking for. And then I did do the Kimberly Seldon Business of Design and just, learned that we did our businesses pretty similarly. And then just from her expertise, learned a bit more. And anytime I could take another course, I learned a bit more. My friend Rebecca Hay also does a course here in Canada called the Power Process. So I did hers as well. And just, hungry for all that information and where you can grab it. And thankfully, it is getting easier. Thank you to Instagrams and social media and podcasts and people like yourself who are willing to share this information from the years of experience. But unfortunately, it was a lot of trial and error and see what sticks, like throwing spaghetti at a wall, which now feels ridiculous, but there wasn't really a lot of options. So that was the way. And then it was also just because that is how I'm wired. I don't like feeling that I don't have control of every project the same way. And I didn't like that I felt like it was inconsistent and that there wasn't a path, or if I got questioned at some point, so what's next? And then I would be like, I don't know what's next. Give me things to think about it. I didn't like that feeling.
Sure.
So it was something that needed to be, I knew it every time. There was no question. And I get so much repeat business that my clients know what's coming too. Like Wonderful. They are very aware of what the next step is. And I feel like that provides confidence as well for me and for our client.
Yeah. And that's great just to have that consistency that they can rely on too. They're like, okay, we're going to do another project with you, our lake house or whatever. And we know the process, so they can just sit back and breathe easy because you've got it under control and they've been through it before. Yeah,
exactly. It does give a layer for sure of confidence that it's given me, that then obviously is just obvious. Because you do the same thing every time, it's very easy to know the next step. You're not trying to figure out in your head, what should I be doing next? Should I be going picking your fabrics? Should I be calling? Every time, right? So it becomes very easy for everybody involved.
That's great. So what would you give some last advice here for someone who's interested in the career, thinking about getting into it? Do you have any advice for them?
I do. I think I know you're American and we have to go to school here to have the interior designer. Do a lot of research on which school and what they focus on, because each school has their pluses and their minuses and their focuses. So depending on what avenue you want to take, but it is a great career to be creative and can provide you a great future if you do those 3 things. I think it's important to have the contract. I think it's important to have your process. And I definitely think it's important to know your worth so that you are charging appropriately for your expertise, your education, and your time. And then consistently, if we're all charging properly, then there'll be a standard through our business and our practices that allow all of us to never shave another hour off an invoice, or you never, that will provide all of us. There's so much work out there. It's not like it's competitive. It just needs to be that we're all consistent.
Yes.
But give it a go. It's a great industry. A lot of fabulous people in it. That's the one gift this podcast has given me. I've met so many wonderful people who are in this business, including yourself, that a lot of people are giving, a lot of people are willing to share. And so if we keep doing this community and collaborative, it'll be a lot easier for the next generation to be able to have profitable businesses a lot sooner.
Yeah. Rising tide lifts all boats, right? So
correct.
That's
great. Good one. Yeah.
Do you have any plans for Business of Beautiful Spaces taking it? Because I'm sure that you're probably having people reach out to you that might want to work with you a little bit more, like get a little more advice from you. Do you have like a plan for it?
It wasn't the intention, truth be told. It was not. It was just because I had so many people ask. But the biggest thing I get asked for is pricing, like how to make this work that it's, people feel confident leaving the every paycheck on a Friday guaranteed to trying to do this on their own. And so I've been asked so much that I feel like there might have to be a masterclass to just get this information out there that's not on a podcast and open to everybody's clients, because that is no one's business how we all make money. Yeah. Obviously, that is why we own our own businesses. Right. But I feel like that would be something that people are hungry for. And again, I was too. So it was a moment where I was like, I've been asked this question the most, in addition to, do I mentor or do I do those things? And I think there are so many other fabulous people out there doing it. Let them do that. But I do think there's some value in finding the consistency throughout our industry of how people charge.
Yes. Yeah, I think a masterclass would be a great option then for your listeners. That'd be great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I'm definitely going to check out Business of Beautiful Spaces as well. Maybe I'll get some actionable advice for myself, because we can always learn from each other. And we'll include all those links that people can reach you. I know you're on Instagram, like you said, so people can reach out to you or find your website and your beautiful portfolio. And so, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun.
Such a great conversation with Laura. I really enjoyed talking with her. I feel like we are definitely on the same wavelength of wanting to help people that are reaching out to us and wanting advice and not having the time to go to coffee with each and every one of you. So here we are with podcasts to kind of dispel some of that information to more of you and reach farther. So you definitely want to go and listen to her podcast, including the links in the show notes. So check that out. And I'm going to have some more great episodes and interviews for you coming up. So stick around. And until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.